What's going on, guys? This is Kaishro. Welcome back. So we are back with another video. On this video, we are going to tackle the top 5 best sleeper decks to play on November 2023 OCG metagame format. So these are the most underrated, most underrepresented, and low-key decks that you can play on the format. But by no means, it can definitely surprise people and catch people off guard on the format because most players doesn't have the ability and the knowledge to identify the choke points of the deck, and they don't have that much experience on facing these decks on the format. So yeah, so technically these are the decks that can lurk below the meta game but can give you good chances of winning as well and surprising a tournament as well on the format. So without further ado, let's start. Coming at number 5, we have Dynamorphia. So this is a very underrepresented deck on the format because most people are not inclined to play this deck because this deck is a hassle to play because this deck loses your LP for the effects on the Dynamorphia cards on this archetype. So imagine losing your LP the first minutes of the game. So you are kinda discouraged on playing this deck, no? You don't really have the resolve to play this deck on big tournaments or local tournaments because of the factor that you may lose on time. But if a player does have the resolve and the stronghold on their capacity to play this deck on events, it can definitely catch people off guard because their boss monster, the Rexstorm, is a walking skill drain on the field, which has a high attack as well. And this deck can really beat down many decks on the format if this deck manages to stun the opponent. And also, this deck possesses the ability to play the best counter traps on the game like Solemn Judgment and Solemn Strike, which are beneficial as well on the burning life points on the mechanic of the deck. But if they manage to go first and set up this type of cards on their arsenal, it is a really tough time going against this Dynamorphia deck. And one of the best traits on Dynamorphia is they can nullify the advantages of Maxi on the OCG format. We already know how impactful the Maxi is on the OCG format. Most people are trying to avoid playing through this card. That's why Dynamorphia is a deck that can nullify the damages of Maxi because they don't really summon a lot, special summon a lot on a single turn. So yeah, they can really play around Maxi very well. But the problem of this deck is still the same. This is a deck that hardly loses to Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. If Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring can hit your summoning trap cards like the Frenzy and the Domain, you are pretty much in a bad shape in this Dynamorphia. But yeah, I think most people doesn't have the outs to this Dynamorphia right now. Most of them have been preparing for the best decks on the format like the Rescue Ace, the Snake Eyes, the Silent Force. Those meta-relevant decks on the format are the decks that our people are preparing against. So yeah, they are pretty much will be left empty-handed when they have been faced a stun deck and a control deck like Dynamorphia for me. That's why I regard this deck as a top 5 best sleeper deck right now in the format due to that surprise factor alone. So yeah, at number 5 we have Dynamorphia. Moving towards the number 4, we have Farking Tribe Brigade. So this is the innovation of Tribe Brigade variants right now on the format. Most people have been playing Tribe Brigade Pure, Tribe Brigade Sprite, and Tribe Brigade Lyrilusk and the Horus Tribe Brigade. But this variant is also a legitimate variant to play on this Tribe Brigade variants with the Farking. We all know that Farking is a very represented deck on the format. This is one of the best decks on the format with the Sinful Spoils and the Snake Eyes right now. But also this variant is kinda underrated as well because most people doesn't have the prior knowledge to face this deck on the format. And with the explosiveness of the Farking that can destroy multitudes of cards on a single turn with the toolbox of Tribe Brigade that can go into something like Apollousa, that is very beneficial to protect their board and negate opponents' monsters' effects, and also the capacity to play around Maxi if they have been struck with Maxi. They can just play conservatively and summon something like a double Dragon Lord so that they are not empty-handed on their board, so they can still have a form of interruption against their opponent, and also the ability to link climb easily using the Tri Brigade monsters with one fractal that can go into Access Code Talker which is very beneficial when you can swing damage for game and go for game instantly using this Tri Brigade that goes into access code talker very efficiently. So those are the positive traits on playing this Farking Tri Brigade. You add the explosiveness and the overall power of Farking to the ever resilient and ever reliable Tri Brigade engine on the deck, which has a good synergy as well between the two. So yeah, this is a very good deck right now for me to play and very underrated as well. The problem of this deck is they are really losing bad against Artifact Lancea. Lancea is very phenomenal against this deck, and we all know that Lancea is a card that many people consider as one of their best side deck options to use against the Rescue Ace, Sinful Spoils, and Snake Eyes right now, because the RAs and Sinful Snake Eyes is probably the most represented deck on the format. That's why many people are playing Lancea Light right now. So yeah, this is the card that you will find the most struggle against when using this deck. And yeah, I think this deck is very strong right now in the format on the hands of the right pilot, but yeah, it's kinda up in the air if this deck can perform on the levels of Sprite Tri Brigade before and something like the Horus Tri Brigade on a comparative basis right now. So yeah, at number 4 we have Farking Tri Brigade. Moving towards the number 3, we have the Sky Striker on a pure version. So why Sky Striker is a reliable deck? Simply because this is a toolbox deck. You have a very diverse format right now. We have the Silent Force and the things like Farking and also the Rescue Ace right now. And also on the tier 2 to tier 3, there's a lot of decks like Labyrinth, Runic, Salaman Great, and other stuff like Horus Naturia, and other stuff on the tier 3 below. We have the Vanquishoals. So there's a plethora of decks that are really good and viable right now on the format. So the advantage of Sky Striker is it can basically answer all of them due to the toolbox nature of the deck. You have the Widow Anchors, you have the Afterburners, you have the Jamming Waves, you have all those toolbox cards on the deck that you can able to play against a multitude of decks on the very diverse format right now. So I think that's the biggest upside of playing Sky Striker right now. So I think that Sky Striker is very strong on that regard, and also Sky Striker is a very good control deck with a mid-range pace on the deck. You can definitely play a lot of hand traps on the deck. You have things like Veiler and Imperm to slot in the deck that can give you better chances against a very diverse format, because Veiler and Imperm can be really good against Rescue and other decks on the format as well. And also things like Nibiru that can really help you when going second. So this Sky Striker has 12 to 15, even 18 slots for tech cards, going second cards, and hand traps on the deck. So yeah, this deck is very flexible on dealing against majority of matchups on the format. And also, you can also play this Sky Striker in a going second manner, playing cards like the evenly match on the deck. So yeah, I can definitely tell that Sky Striker is a very versatile deck to play right now in the format. You have a lot of ways to play this Sky Striker on the format, and you will definitely find success if you can really use your knowledge on interrupting your opponents using the multitudes of hand trap on this Sky Striker. And if you decide to go second as well, you can definitely catch people off guard if they are a deck that doesn't have that much Omni Negations on their arsenal. So yeah, at number 3 we have Sky Striker. Moving towards the number 2, we have the Horus Beatdown. So this deck is kinda gaining traction recently from the YCS Japan. This deck have been topping on the tournament, and also in Indonesia and Malaysia, and even parts of Thailand and Taiwan. This deck is kinda seeing representations right now in the format. That's why I rate it as the number 2 best sleeper deck on the format right now, due to the overall resiliency of playing the Horus that can give you easy rank 8 access on the deck and 8 axis on the deck, that can bring out something like Photon Lord and Harbinger, and can go second with the Dingirisu that can eventually go into Zeus easily. So yeah, you really have the advantages of Horus that can bring you boss monster on the field that you can rely on if you are trying to sit on floodgates like there can be only one. On top of that, you have things like Inspector Border that you can really rely on when you can go first. So this deck fixes the very bad traits of the Metabit right now. The problem of Metabit is they don't have the engine to play consistently on a regular basis, and also they lack the overall cards and tools to go second. That's why Horus fixes everything for that on that department on the Metabit. So yeah, I really rate this deck very high right now on the format because it really gives a lot of boost towards the Metabit strategy on the format, and also Floodgates right now is very underrated as well. Most people doesn't have outs on their deck when going first or second against a Metabit deck or a Floodgate deck on that extent. So yeah, Floodgates can definitely stun most people on the format, but the problem is the post side decking game 2 entries where people can side deck something like Cosmic Cyclone and Lightning Storm to eradicate your board. But overall, I do think that this deck is very good. It can go first and can stun people using the Horus and the Floodgates and the Inspector Border, and can go second as well, which has a rank 8 toolbox that can go eventually into Zeus that can clear boards. So yeah, I really do agree that this deck is very strong right now and very underrated as well. So at number 2, we have the Horus Metabit. Moving towards the number 1, we have the Invoke, Snake Eyes, Sinful Spoils. So we technically mesh the recent trend of engines of Snake Eyes and Sinful Spoils towards the ever popular and evergreen Invoke engine on the OCG. This deck is a deck that a combination of many engines, but it is a deck also that is capable of dealing a good turn 1 basis. If you have the negations from the Invoke, from the Mechaba, you have the resiliency and consistency of the Snake Eyes from the Populous, and also the additional engine and extra negation from the rather Sinful Spoils. It gives you a deck that is very complex but a very well adaptive on the format because it can go first as well. We all know that this deck can already set up negation from the Invoke Mechaba and the Trap of Sinful Spoils, and also Snake Eyes can do something like IP Masquerena, and if they manage to combo off, they can go into the Amblo Whale and the Prisoner Princess. So Snake Eyes really adds another dimension from the engines of Invoke and the Sinful Spoils. So yeah, I really think that this deck is one of the most good and better decks that can go first because it sets up multitude of negations, and yeah, you can really protect your board of something like IP Masquerena, and that goes into SP Little Knight. And also, this deck can have the space as well to mesh on their main deck because this is only a addition of multiple engines on the deck. So you have spaces for hand traps as well and other utility cards on the deck. So yeah, I think this is a very nice mid-range deck right now in the format. So I would really vouch that this deck can be very surprising to deal against, especially if people doesn't really expect you to play the Invoke, Snake Eyes, Sinful Spoils. But the problem of this deck is still the same. Most negation-based oriented decks are hardly losing to Droplet and Dark Ruler No More. Especially Droplet are seeing traction right now because most people doesn't have the prior knowledge to choke out something like Silent Force and Snake Eyes, which are very good decks that can set up Omni Negates on the board. That's why they are relying to playing Droplet right now. And even I relies on playing Droplet because I do feel like that Droplet gives you that much edge against the negation-oriented decks on the format. And also, Dark Ruler No More on side deck is very detrimental against the deck. And also, we cannot ignore the fact that Droll Lockbird is very much played on the format right now. Even though this deck is very consistent with a lot of starters, we have the Alistair, we have the Populous, we have the Meltdown, we have the Bonfire, and also the Devil Star, which Droll Lockbird really stamps this deck after all those multitude of starters on this deck. It hardly loses to Droll Lockbird. And also, if you are paired with a Floodgate deck or the deck that runs Floodgate, you are pretty much screwed against that because this deck doesn't have the inherent outs to play around Floodgates right now on the format. So yeah, but other than that, I do think that this is a very capable mid-range deck on the format can really give you an edge when going first, and if you can set up a very decent board. So at number one we have Invoke, Snake Eyes, Sinful Spoils. So short recap on our video. At number 5 we have Dynamorphia. At number 4 we have Tri Brigade, Farking. At number 3 we have Sky Striker. At number 2 we have Metabit, Horus. And at number 1 we have Invoke, Snake Eyes, and Sinful Spoils. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you do learn something from this video. Hit the subscription button if you're not yet subscribed on my YouTube channel. And hit the notification bell if you want to get more updated on my future contents. So see you on the next one. Peace.
Been finding ways to get away.